I'm Dale Smith for Looney Politics, and it's week 3 of the election. This is the week where parties tried to pivot and get a little more focused on policy, but some of those policies wound up being kind of dumb. But let's do the roundup. Justin Trudeau was trying to pivot from last week's blackface revelations and was trying to put a lot more meat on the policy bones. That included things like raising the personal deduction for income tax, a down payment on pharmacare, which is contingent on negotiation with the provinces, and then a suite of different environmental measures around things like tax credits for zero-emission businesses, or expanding national parks, or planting 2 billion trees. Some of that got some criticism that there wasn't a lot of detail in that. We're assured that some of that costing is going to come out next week, but I think it's also important to note that Trudeau was actually honest in certain aspects that other leaders haven't been when it comes to the fact that some of these things need to be negotiated with the provinces, and therefore you can't come out with just here's a big policy idea, we'll figure it out later. Certain other leaders, Jagmeet Singh in particular, seem to gloss over the fact that implementation matters. And we got a sense from Trudeau that that was less of an issue. On the sillier side, there was also the promise to expand the Learn to Camp program, which might include some bursaries for low-income families to go camping. The notion is that this would help people to connect with nature and to be more aware of things like conservation, but it's still pretty gimmicky, and it's something that, at least in my experience, is a pretty white people thing to promise. Andrew Scheer's policy proposals were a little more over the map, with things like veterans and mortgages and small business taxes and home renovation tax credits, and calling an inquiry into the double hyphen affair. Part of the problem here is that some of these policies don't make any sense. For example, the policy proposal to undo the changes that the Liberals made to some of the small business tax credits won't do anything for small businesses at all. They would simply provide tax loopholes to people like doctors and accountants who are able to use their income in certain loophole ways to reduce their taxes. That was closed by the Liberals because it was being abused, and Scheer is now saying he'll bring them back for no apparent reason whatsoever. So some of those things don't make a lot of sense. Scheer also decided, as part of his double hyphen affair kick, would be to drag the Supreme Court of Canada into disputes where the RCMP is looking for information that's cabinet confidence. It's a very, very bad idea. We don't need to turn the Supreme Court into a political actor, and I don't think that these proposals were necessarily thought through as well. For Jagmeet Singh, a lot of the week was spent reiterating their previous promises around things like pharmacare or building new housing units, but he got himself into a bit of trouble in an interview by saying that he would grant basically a veto to any province that didn't want a pipeline going through their territory. When he was called on this, he said it wasn't really a veto, but then basically said Quebec would get one anyway because they're Quebec and he's proud of that. And then was trying to walk back it's not really a veto, we're just trying to get everyone on the same side and so on, but he never really kind of came with a concrete or solid answer to what exactly that means. And a veto by any other name is really just a veto. And not to be forgotten, the Greens came out with their fully costed platform numbers, and they were a bit of a mess. And in fact, the former parliamentary budget officer, Kevin Page, who runs the Institute for Fiscal Studies at University of Ottawa, took a look over those numbers and gave them a failing grade. So I think that's also something we need to kind of pay attention to because, again, it's an ambitious platform. There are some good ideas in there, but implementation matters, and that's something that we need to remember as voters. For Looney Politics, I'm Dale Smith.